It doesn't seem to matter how or where we camp these days, technology follows us. From phones, tablets, watches, drones, cameras, laptops, fridges, fans, there's always something, and there's no doubt that every camp setup has some sort of electrical device. Today we're going to dive into Bluetti's newest power station, the EB55. We're going to be talking about what it is, how it works, the battery capacity and makeup, watt hours versus amp hours. We're going to test the unit, charge it back up again, talk about who it's designed for, and my thoughts overall. So let's get straight into it. So we're back, and yes, we have another Bluetti product review today. Now, when I started this channel, I promised to remain independent for reviews like this. Now, I have and always promised to continue to only feature products on this channel that I believe in, and I believe that will provide a benefit to the market, and something that I would buy myself. The reason I feature Bluetti products on this channel is because in my experience, they just work. I've tried and abused a few of these power stations now, particularly this AC200P that gets abused every single time we go out and hit the tracks, and is well and truly overloaded in some of the applications that I put it through, but yet it's still going strong. Now, it's for this reason that I want to include a few of their products that Bluetti offer in my reviews. I initially started with the AC200P, but I've included these smaller power stations in order to provide comprehensive information and my overall thoughts to someone who's maybe looking for something a little smaller or a little bit cheaper when compared to the big version here. So yes, Bluetti did provide the EB55 unit to me, but I'm not paid, pressured or coerced to conduct this review in any particular manner. As you can imagine, I don't need 3 power stations, but I'm doing this review so we can have a side-by-side comparison between these products to see which one, if any, are going to be right for an application for your needs. Now, not wasting any more time, today we're here to test this, Bluetti's newest power station, EB55. Now, Bluetti has only just released this in Australia this morning, November 27th, 2021. However, I've been fortunate enough to have a bit of a play around and test with this unit beforehand to give you guys my overall thoughts and show you some of the testing I've conducted. Now, I know I'm going to get comments saying you've got to throw away the technology, the power stations when you go camping. You've just got to keep it simple and basic. However, I've got a wife and 2 young kids, and if I want any chance of them coming with me on my trips, I've got to make sure they're comfortable. And this is where a unit like the EB55 is going to help out. Now, I know this might just look like another battery power station. However, just like the other products in the Bluetti lineup, this here is a market leader in its class for its size. In here, we have a 537 watt hour lithium iron phosphate battery. Now, for those who aren't chemists or battery experts, a lithium iron phosphate battery is different from lithium ion. So let's go into that. So lithium iron phosphate is the evolution in new batteries. It's made up for a much more stable chemical formula that allows the battery to remain cooler at higher temperatures. And therefore it's not going to be susceptible to thermal runaway like sometimes experienced with lithium ion, and there are rare instances where they cause explosions or battery fires. In addition to this, lithium ion has a much better cycle life and the ability to charge and discharge much faster. So this particular battery is rated to 2,500 cycles to 80%. So that means you're able to charge and discharge this battery every single day for more than 6.5 years, and you're still going to retain 80% of the battery's capacity. So just like with the AC200P, the 537 watt hour capacity of the battery is not the real world usable power. When considering the depth of discharge, which is the power stored inside the unit to keep it functioning when the battery is depleted, and the internal inverter's efficiencies, we're looking at a real world figure of around 478 watt hours. So I think it's time to head back to the garage to do some testing on this unit to see how it performs. Now we are back in the garage, we can talk about some of the specifications and the features of this EB55 unit. Now on the front face of this unit here, we can see 2 DC areas. The first one in the top right hand corner houses a cigarette plug and 2 barrel connectors, and they're rated at 10 amps. This is going to be plenty for any sort of 12 watt accessory that plugs into a cigarette lighter. So to put it into perspective, this Waco CFX 65 litre 12 watt compressor fridge that I run only draws about 55 watts when that compressor is running, which equates to about 4.1 amps. Even the DJI drone charger that's rated at 9 amps at 13 volt can still be run off this cigarette plug with no dramas. Now I don't have any use for the barrel connectors, but I guess they're handy to be there for those who do. There's also another DC panel on the front face of this unit, and that's in the bottom left hand corner. This area houses 4 generic USB-A ports, all rated to 5 volt at 3 amp. So there's going to be plenty to charge any of your normal or regular USB charging devices. Now, although above this we have a 100 watt power delivery USB-C port. Now, USB-C is becoming more and more popular these days for fast charging power hungry devices. So something like my 2021 MacBook Pro uses a power delivery port to charge and is rated to charge up to 96 watt. So a port like this on the EB55 is going to be awesome for fast charging that. Now, on the bottom right hand corner, we have our two AC 240 volt GPIOs. Now, these GPIOs are powered by a pure sine wave inverter that puts out 700 watts of power continuously and peaks up to 1400 watt for those surges. So that's pretty impressive for a unit of this size. Now, we can't forget about the 15 watt wireless charging pad that's integrated into the top panel of this unit. So just placing any wireless charging compatible device on top of this box is going to have it charging hassle and cord free. Now, spinning the unit around, the only other usable feature on this box that's not placed on the front control panel there is the diffused LED light. This light has three settings, being low, high and SOS mode. Now, although generally the lights placed on these units are fairly cheap and inefficient, however this one here is not too bad, and I do actually have a specific purpose that I'm planning on using it for, and we'll talk about that later on in the video. Now, Bluetti could not have made this unit simpler or easier to use, and it's good to see that the simplicity and innovation is progressing and developing through each model they release. The EB55 only has 3 buttons on the face panel, one attached to each of the AC or DC sub-units. So a press and hold of any of these buttons will activate the outlets in that panel. How simple is that? There is no master on-off switch and then turning on an AC or DC panel. It's just a matter of picking the panel that your accessory plugs into and pressing one button. In doing so, regardless of the panel that you activate, the LCD screen will illuminate and show us the information relating to the battery state of charge in the form of 20% increments and the power coming in and out in the form of watts. The display will stay illuminated for about 20 seconds after that last button press. So I just want to talk a little bit about the physical design of the power station. Now, if you remember my EB150 review, the only area I thought could do with a bit of improvement was the fact that the AC and DC ports weren't on the same side of the unit. This means it was hard to use the unit in its full capability when packed into a small storage area, say the back of a car or somewhere into your RV. The EB55 doesn't have that issue. All of the controls, the screens, the buttons, AC and DC outlets are all on the front facing panel, except for obviously that LED light, which means that if you wanted to use or place this battery into a permanent area in your vehicle, access would only be required to the front panel to use all the ports and or to check the battery capacity easily and conveniently. The only thing you need to consider is just those cooling fans on the left and right sides. Now, the design of this unit is simple, but it's practical. The square edges of this unit and the flat panels, that means it's very straightforward to pack into your vehicle, and the fact that we have a folding handle here not only means that it's easy to stack and pack gear on top of, but also to get access to that 15 watt wireless charging pad. Now, moving on to that handle, it appears very strong there, however we're only moving around 7.5 kilos. So in doing my Bluetti AC200 review video, I got many questions asking about why we use watt hours instead of amp hours, which is generally the Australian standard for measuring the battery capacity and performance of these power stations. Now, let me start by saying measuring the watt hours is a much simpler and more practical form of measurement when talking about these types of power stations, in particular lithium iron phosphate batteries. The reason we use watt hours is because it's a universal measurement of power regardless of the variance of voltage. Now, for those who are stuck with amp hours and just won't accept anything less, you can work out the capacity of this battery in amp hours. However, keep in mind it's only going to relate to the DC power. The way in which we do this is by taking the total 537 watt hour capacity and dividing that by the 13 volt consistent regulated power through the DC outlets, which is going to give us roughly 40 amp hour of capacity. Now, we can also figure out how long certain appliances are going to run on both DC and AC outlets using a simple calculation. So for an example, let's take a compressor fridge at 12 volt running at about 25 watts an hour. Now, what we need to do is take our usable 478 watt hours and divide that by 25. This is going to give us just a bit over 19, which means we're going to have a little bit over 19 hours of runtime. Now, we do the same calculation for AC appliances too. For example, an appliance that uses 500 watt is going to be running for a little bit under an hour. Now, I did actually conduct a test with my Waco CFX 65 litre 12 volt compressor fridge. Starting at 22 degrees warm and then having it cool it down to 3 degrees and set at 3 degrees, I managed to have this little power station run that fridge for just over 30 hours, which I think is fairly impressive given the ambient temperatures are about 12 degrees at night and 30 degrees during the day. Now, for this test, the fridge wasn't regularly or frequently opened, so keep in mind the use and the environmental conditions will change those results. But overall, that's a fairly decent runtime for a power station that's so small. Now it's now time to start testing out that 240 volt inbuilt inverter. Now I tested multiple appliances on the unit with the intent to ensure that it can successfully hold that 700 watt continuous for an extended period of time. Now I found that using the AC chargers from both the Bluetti EB150 and the AC200 drew a little over 700 watts in total, which was perfect for this test. I wanted to be able to check and see that this unit could hold that 700 watt for an extended period of time to make sure it didn't shut down. Now I did a test for a little over 6 minutes and I don't doubt that the unit would have handled more if I continued. But while it was under maximum load, I also started to load up some more devices. I added a MacBook USB-C charger, a regular USB-C charger for the iPad, 4 GoPro batteries and twin chargers, a USB Apple Watch charger, and an iPhone on the wireless charging pad. It would seem that the last couple of the devices pushed it over the edge and the unit shut down, but we can see there that it was pushing up to 780 watt output. Now I think it goes without saying that Bluetti designed this power station with 11 outputs. So this means that you can load this device up to the max and it's still going to run, ensuring that the 700 watts maximum power output isn't overloaded too much. During my testing, I also tested for heat and hotspots, which I'm glad to report didn't really exist. Even when dual charging with the AC and solar inputs and running the outputs for maximum power outage, the unit was only a few degrees warmer than ambient. Even the air coming straight out the right hand side of the cooling fan wasn't much warmer. Then the fans on this unit did turn on and off during my testing, but it appears the software may have changed in the EB55 when I'm comparing it with my AC200. The EB55 fans appear to be temperature controlled, switching on and off regardless of the load. However, on the AC200, once that load exceeds a certain limit, those fans will automatically turn on regardless of the internal temperature. Now, even when these fans were on, it did seem to be fairly quiet, which was good to see. So during our testing, we managed to discharge this battery all the way down to 0 and it shut off completely. So now it's time to put some charge back into this unit. Now, one of the shortcomings that came with the AC200P is that the unit had to be switched on in order to accept any form of charge. Now, I'm glad to say the EB55 doesn't have that issue. Regardless of the state, whether those unit panels are activated or not, plugging in any sort of input into the unit will automatically turn the unit on and start accepting that charge. Firstly, the EB55 can be charged through your standard AC power. So it comes with an AC power brick, although it's still relatively large, plugs straight into the input on the top left-hand corner of the face panel and can accept up to 200 watt. Now during my testing, I found anywhere between 200 and 205 watt was where it sat when it was charging regardless of the state of charge. So this means that this unit can be fully charged from empty in a little under 3 hours. Now, like all of the AC chargers provided by Bluetti, the AC power brick does also have an internal cooling fan as well. Now this fan is not temperature or load dependent or activated, and it's always going to be on when it's plugged in. So something to keep in mind depending on how and where you're planning on using and charging a station like this. So like the rest of the Bluetti lineup, one of the most popular ways to charge these systems is through solar. So this system here has an inbuilt MPPT charger that can accept up to 200 watt of solar input, again charging that system in less than 3 hours. So it's time to take this unit back out and see how we go. Now, if you've watched my review on the AC200P, you know that that unit requires a minimum of 35 volt of solar to even recognize and start charging the big battery. This means that in almost every circumstance, even when using big 200 watt panels like this, you're going to have to run 2 in series together just in order to get any charge at all. And using one panel just isn't going to work. Now, I'm glad to report that the EB55 doesn't have that issue. It can accept any solar panel between the voltage of 12 and 28 volt. So what this means is you're able to use almost any solar panel on the portable panel market, and it's going to work standalone or wired in parallel with another one. So we're going to conduct some tests today to see exactly how this works and see what some of the real world figures are coming into this unit. Now, a great thing about all of these power stations is you can use any solar panel. It doesn't have to be a Bluetti branded one. Now, but if you wanted to check whether or not your solar panel that you already have is going to work with this unit, you need to find out a few things about it. Now, generally on a solar panel, either a sticker or a plaque, there's some sort of information regarding some of the technical details. Now, in the example of this Bluetti SP200, that's going to be underneath this pocket here where it's printed onto the unit itself. What you're going to be looking for is the voltage at max power. And on this unit here, we can see that it's rated to 20 volt. Now, as we mentioned before, that 20 volts sits between that 12 and 28, so theoretically this panel should work just fine. Now I'm going to start this test off with a single SP200 watt Bluetti solar panel. I found these units to be very efficient, and we'll see how this unit accepts that panel. So here today it's relatively good in terms of the weather condition. We're sitting at about mid 20 degrees Celsius. The Bluetti solar panels come with MC4 connectors, and the EB55 also comes with an adapter from MC4 connectors to the input required being an XT60 connector. So plugging the panels in, we can see we're getting about 140 watts of power. This is roughly what you would expect for a setup like this. So what if the day is overcast, or due to your environmental conditions or even geographical location, you're just not able to get a really efficient reading out from a single solar panel? Well, it's very easy to wire a couple of solar panels in parallel together to keep the voltage down but the wattage high. So let me show you how that's done. So when connecting panels in parallel, you're essentially connecting both the positive terminals together into a single connector and then doing the same with the negative terminals. You can then connect the single terminal into the Bluetti supplied adapter and then straight into the EB55. Connecting panels like this, we're going to be combining the total wattage, however retaining the lower nominal voltage. So in this instance here, we're using two SP200 watt panels rated at 200 watt each and at 20 volt. Wiring them in parallel, we're going to achieve 400 watt of power, but still at 20 volt. We should also mention that the MPPT solar charger in here acts like a gate. So even though we're overloading that 200 watt maximum input that the unit is rated to with our 400 watt of panels, the solar controller is going to act like a gate and allowing the maximum amount into the station to charge the battery. Because we're still keeping that 20 volt constant and not overloading the voltage, the system will be okay. So overloading wattage is all right, you're going to get that maximum charge, but you cannot overload the voltage. Now when plugging in that second panel and hooking it up in parallel, we can see that wattage increase to around about 160, which to be honest, isn't actually that impressive. Now you can also hear the fans on this unit are turning on and off just to regulate the temperature control in the EB55. But as I was saying, I have used these SP200 watt panels in this setup on my Bluetti AC200 and I received a much higher efficiency rating. So I'm going to assume that there's some sort of efficiency loss in the solar MPPT charger in this unit, preventing it from making that full 200 watt alleged maximum. So I also conducted some testing yesterday in some hazy and patchy sunlight conditions at home. Connecting two of the SP200 watts in parallel helped in retaining optimal charging rates in what otherwise would have been very average conditions. Now again, we didn't see that 200 watt maximum, however, keeping the two in parallel together in those unfavorable conditions definitely helped us optimize the charging given the environmental conditions. Now I've also been fortunate enough to get my hands on some of the Bluetti's SP120 watt solar panels. Now these share all the same quality and features as the SP200 watt panels, but as you can see here, they're much smaller. These panels are going to suit someone who perhaps just don't have the room in their setup to carry around large solar systems or just don't need the same output that the SP200 watt brings. Let's go plug these into the EB55 and see what sort of power we can get from them. The SP120 watts provided a pretty good result there at 105 watts, which is an efficiency of 87%, which is pretty much on par with the industry average for a high quality solar panel. Now these panels are going to be great for someone who's looking to save a bit of space and weight, and perhaps even wiring two of these in parallel is going to bring a much higher charge, if not maximum charge, into a station like the EB55. So moving on from solar, there are other ways to efficiently charge this station, and one of the unique features that this power station has for its class is dual charging. So what this means is we can have a solar input coming in through the XT60 connector, but we can also add a barrel connector into the AC port, in this case being charged from the AC200P, and get a combined 400 watt of charge if the solar is bringing in maximum as well. So now not only can we dual charge from solar and from an AC input, but we can also dual charge from two AC inputs, although it's something that I'm probably not going to be using myself personally. The EB55 does come with this barrel to XT60 connector plug. So simply plugging that into where the solar would normally go. So plugging in that second AC power, again, you're going to get that 400 watt maximum charge through those two AC power bricks. Now it should be noted that the second AC power brick is not included in the kit. So if it's something that you're going to want to do with this unit, you're going to have to purchase that separately. Now the last and perhaps one of the more popular charging methods for the EB55 is just through your standard cigarette lighter style 12 volt plug in your vehicle, RV or caravan. Bluetti supply a cigarette lighter to XT60 connector, which can just be plugged into the back of your vehicle and then plugged straight into the unit. Now you need to note as well, if your vehicle's off and you're running a non-lithium battery setup and the voltage is going to drop down to about 12.8 without that alternator running, you're going to see a charge rate of about 50 watts, or I did anyway. However, if you're using a regulated lithium outlet, or if you're using a voltage converter like I've got in the back of my vehicle here, that boosts that voltage up even when the vehicle's off, you're seeing a charge rate of about 70 watts. So it's going to charge this battery from empty in about 7 hours. Now, it might not be the most practical or the fastest way to charge the battery, but it's probably going to be the most convenient and the budget option if you are traveling on the road from day to day. Another commonly asked question with these units is whether or not they support pass-through charging. Now, pass-through charging refers to the ability of these power stations to accept a charge, whether it be from solar, AC or otherwise, at the same time as being able to discharge in the form of AC and DC outlets. Now, I can confirm that this EB55, along with all the other power stations that I've tested, do support pass-through charging. Through my testing, I managed to put in the maximum power in through dual charging, at the same time as drawing the maximum power out through the AC and DC outlets, and I ran this for some time and didn't experience any issue. This is going to come in very handy to make sure you're not waiting around during the day to charge your devices while the power station's charging. So after using and testing the unit for a little while now, I want to talk about who might benefit from a unit like the EB55. Now, firstly, unlike the AC200P and the EB150, I don't believe a unit like this is going to be a suitable dual battery replacement for your vehicle or your van. The limited battery capacity just probably isn't going to be enough for the average traveller. Things like 12-watt fridges, lights and charging portable devices on a repetitive basis probably isn't the main goal for a unit like this. Now, there are areas in the market that a portable unit like this is going to benefit greatly, and the key here is portability. This unit is very compact, very powerful and very light. Weighing in at only 7.5 kilos, it's extremely easy to move around. So one of the big benefits for a unit like this is perhaps you're going out for a day, down to the beach or out to the park, and you want to take a small fridge or even just charge a few devices or power a few electronics while you're away from the vehicle. A unit like this is going to be absolutely perfect for that. And being so small and light, it makes it very easy to take back and forward from your vehicle. So the second group of people that are going to get a benefit from a unit like this are those who find themselves in areas without power, but aren't necessarily overland travelers or campers. So perhaps you're a mountain biker and just want to charge some camera equipment and some drones, maybe even power a fridge in your vehicle between descents. Or a hiker or a kayaker where you're leaving your vehicle in a set location for a little while and you want to come back to be able to charge some portable devices and access some cold drinks into a fridge. A unit like this is going to be absolutely perfect for those situations. Being so small and compact, it's going to fit even in the smallest space in almost any vehicle and be able to power those small devices with that 700-watt inverter. This power station is the one I'm planning on taking along on a Canning stock route trip that I'm planning to do next year. Here's hoping that it's open by then. It's not that I need more power, but it's the convenience and the portability of this unit, which is why I'm going to be bringing it along with me. Now, normally I have a phone that's in my pocket and I use that for general purpose and also photography. I also use things like a smartwatch and other small portable devices. When I go back to my house at home, I stick this on a bedside table where it's charged up overnight and I wake up with fully charged devices. Now, I can't count how many times now that I've woken up with flat watches, flat phones and flat batteries because in a tense situation or overlanding, you just don't have that access to power on your bedside table. This little station here is going to become my overlanding bedside table. Not only can I just place that phone on top of the unit and plug in my smartwatch charger, but I can also use the light on the back of it as a general light to light up the camping area. So it's going to be the ultimate portable bedside table for when we're out camping and something that's going to be very handy on that long-term trip. Now, the other reason as well is my dad, who is also planning on coming along with me in my vehicle, runs a CPAP machine. Now again, this is going to be able to power that with ease and still have plenty of power left in the morning. However, it's that portability of having it close to your tent or close to your sleeping arrangements that's going to make it very easy to use and very attractive for people who might have similar devices. So taking a unit like this along on a trip like that is also going to assist greatly with charging all of my batteries and my camera equipment. Now, I might not be out here producing high quality professional videos, but I still use a lot of gear, things like phones, mirrorless cameras, DSLRs, microphones, both wired and wireless, and this all takes its toll on the vehicle's batteries. Having a system like this is just going to take that pressure off at night when we sit down for camp and allow the vehicle's batteries to power the important things like the fridge, the lights, and some other accessories on the vehicle. Now, no product is perfect, and the EB55 power station is no exception. Now, there are definitely a few things that could be improved, or at least need to be considered by a potential buyer before purchasing the item. Now, the first one is the display. Now, there's no doubt that the display on this EB55 is probably the easiest and best color display that Bluetti have produced. However, it would still be nice to see a battery percentage rather than the 20% increments that are currently on there at the moment. Just having that closer or better idea of the battery percentage closer to the end of the battery's life would give you a better idea about how much power you have left, particularly when the battery is depleted. And secondly, it'd be nice to be able to see the estimated runtime with devices plugged in. As we spoke about earlier, it isn't hard to calculate that estimated runtime, but the display here already produces the information required to calculate that, so it'd be nice just to have that information on that display as well. Secondly, I was a little bit disappointed in the solar charger in this unit. I could not get the solar charger above 175 watts, even when combining 400 watt solar wired in parallel. You really can't add much more to a unit like this, and you can't wire those panels in series for a more efficient conversion. So I'm not sure what they've done differently here, but the AC200P ran those solar panels perfectly, and here we definitely notice a decrease in efficiency. Further, it would be nice to have a slightly bigger solar charger included in this unit. The fact that this unit can draw 700 watt of power at any one time, but only replenish 200 watt, means the battery is going to run out fairly quickly if you are using high powered appliances. So again, just something you got to consider if you are purchasing this unit. Now I'll also note the unit is not serviceable. I was able to undo the 4 screws that hold the end caps on, however it appears that the whole unit is glued together. So it wouldn't be able to be taken apart without some force or even cutting, but for me personally that's not going to be an issue. I don't plan on ever taking apart, servicing or repairing these items myself. But if that's something that you want to do, then perhaps take that into consideration. So overall, I've been very impressed with the EB55 and feel like it's probably one of the more refined and polished products that Bluetti offer to date. When comparing it with the 2 other units we've got here, the EB55 provides a very different but unique purpose. Having the ability or the key improvements of the 100 watt power delivery port, the integrated wireless charger, and that powerful 700 watt inverter all packaged into a very light and compact device, this here really is the king of charging portable devices on the go. So given that this power station is brand new to the Australian market, there are going to be some specials and sales for the introductory offers, so check out the links in the description below if you're interested in that. But guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something from the technical review and the testing today. And I really do believe that this station here does offer a unique purpose to the market that fills a gap between these 2 stations here. But guys, thank you for watching all the way to the end. I really do appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.